Section 10.4, Operations with Rational Numbers. Let's start by talking about the real numbers. The real numbers consist of natural numbers, whole numbers, integers, rational numbers, and irrational numbers. Let's talk about the natural numbers, whole numbers, and integers first. The natural numbers consist of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. The whole numbers consist of 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. The integers involve all negative, all positive numbers, and 0, but just do not include fractions and decimals. A rational number is defined as the quotient of two integers. A rational number can also be represented as a terminating or a repeating decimal. And finally, an irrational number is both a non-repeating and a non-terminating decimal. For example, pi, which is approximately 3.14, is actually a non-repeating and non-terminating decimal. Same thing with the square root of 2. Example 1, subtract the rational numbers 5/9 minus 11/12. Let's start by determining the LCD. It is 36. Next, let's write equivalent fractions with the common denominator 36. We end up with 20 over 36 minus 33 over 36. When we subtract, we end up with negative 13 over 36. Example 2. Simplify the rational numbers negative 7/8 minus 5/6 plus 2/3. Let's start by determining the LCD. It's 24. Next, let's create equivalent fractions with the common denominator. Our new fractions are negative 21 over 24 minus 20 over 24 plus 16 over 24. Negative 21 minus 20, same sign sum, we end up with negative 41 over 24 plus 16 over 24. Different signs different, so subtract, we end up with negative 25 over 24. You can also convert your answer to a mixed number, negative 1 and 1 over 24. When you convert a negative improper fraction to a negative mixed number, ignore the negative. The negative just goes with the answer. It is not part of your conversion process. Example 3, subtract 16.127 minus 67.91. We will subtract. Let's take 67.91 minus 16.127 and just know that our answer will be negative. Make sure you put a 0 if you're subtracting by hand above the 7 and bring down the decimal point so they line up vertically. Your final answer will be negative 51.783. Example 4, simplify 2.7 plus negative 9.44 plus 6.2. Remember, we're working with rational numbers, meaning terminating or repeating decimals or fractions. So let's start by writing it as 2.7, and then when you have a plus negative, it becomes a minus, so minus 9.44 plus 6.2. Starting with the first two, 2.7 minus 9.44, we're going to subtract, and when we do, we get negative 6.74. Negative 6.74 plus 6.2 involves subtracting again. We end up with negative 0.54. Example 5, multiply negative 2/3 times negative 9/10. A negative times a negative is a positive. So we have 2/3 times 9/10. We can cross reduce because we are multiplying. And 2/10 and 9/3 do cross reduce. 2/10 becomes 1/5 and 9/3 becomes 3 over 1. Our final answer is 1 times 3 over 1 times 5, which gives us 3/5. Example 6, simplify negative 5/6 in parentheses squared. So we have negative 5/6 times negative 5/6. A negative times a negative is a positive, and our answer is 25 over 36. No cross reducing is possible. Example 7, divide negative 5/8 by 5/40. Start by rewriting the problem as a multiplication problem. So negative 5/8 times the reciprocal, 40/5. Next, cross reduce. Negative 5 over 5 gives us negative 1 over 1, and 40 over 8 gives us 5 over 1. Negative 1 times 5 gives us negative 5 over 1 times 1. So our final answer is negative 5. Example 8. Multiply 3.44 times negative 1.7 times 0.6. I started by multiplying 3.44 by negative 1.7 using the calculator. I got negative 5.848 and then multiply that by 0.6. Your final answer is negative 3.5088. Example 9. Divide negative 0.394 by 1.7 and round your answer to the nearest hundredth. If you were doing this by hand using long division, you'd want to make the divisor 1.7 turn into a whole number by moving the decimal point one place to the right. You also have to move the decimal point one place to the right in 0.394 to change it into 3.94. If you use your calculator, you get negative 0.231764, etc., which rounded to the nearest hundredth gives you negative 0.23.